Welcome back to another deep dive. I had a really funny moment this morning.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Well, I was walking past a coffee shop, and I overheard this guy on his phone. He looked very serious, and he just said, "I'm going to go cold turkey."
Right, right. Classic phrase.
Right. But for the first time in my life, I actually stopped. I froze in the middle of the sidewalk, and I visualized a literal cold turkey.
A literal turkey, like out of the fridge.
Exactly. And I realized I have absolutely no idea why we say that. I mean, it sounds ridiculous when you actually picture it.
It really is a strange image when you strip away the habit of saying it. I mean,
Yeah.
a cold, uncooked bird,
Yeah.
or maybe leftovers. It doesn't exactly scream, quitting a habit.
Right. And it made me realize that the English language is basically this massive, sprawling museum of accidental history.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, we're walking through these exhibits every single day. We use these phrases, these idioms, metaphors, but we never stop to read the plaques. We just say them because everyone else says them.
That is the perfect way to frame it. I mean, we are constantly speaking in metaphors that are hundreds, sometimes thousands of years old. They're completely disconnected from their original context, yet we all collectively agree on what they mean.
It's kind of like a shared hallucination.
It is. It's a shared hallucination, in a way.
So today we are going to stop walking and actually read the plaques. We've combed through a massive stack of etymological research, history books, and linguistic studies to uncover the secret history of 12 phrases I guarantee you use or hear constantly.
And the goal here isn't just to give you a dictionary definition. Anyone can look that up. The goal is to look at the narrative behind the words. Because when you peel back the layers, you find sailors, you find slaughterhouses, carnival games, and some surprisingly dark ancient laws.
That's exactly what I'm here for. I want to walk away from this deep dive with the ultimate set of cocktail party facts. I really want to know why I'm saying what I'm saying. So where are we starting?
Well, get ready, because language evolves, meanings drift, and the origins are usually much messier and, frankly, grosser than the polite phrases we use today.
Okay, messy is a great place to start. Let's kick this off with a phrase that feels ripped from the headlines right now. Whenever we talk about political corruption or bribery, we always talk about a slush fund.
Oh, yeah.
It just sounds dirty, right? Like a bucket of gray slushy money.
It does have a grimy connotation now. When we hear slush fund in the news, we think of illicit cash, underhanded deals, money hidden from the auditors to pay off someone you really shouldn't be paying.
Right, but I'm guessing slush wasn't originally a metaphor for dirty money.
No, it was quite literal. To get the real story, we have to go back to the 18th century, aboard British naval ships. We kind of have to imagine the smell of the galley.
Okay, so we're at sea. It probably smells like salt and unwashed bodies.
Yeah.
What exactly is the slush?
It was the refuse of the cooking process. When the ships cook boiled salted beef or pork for the crew's dinner, which was the staple diet, a thick layer of fat and grease would rise to the top of the boiling cauldron.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they would skim that off. That waste fat was called slush.
Right, so slush is literally just old boiled bacon grease.
Essentially, yes. It was the rendered fat from the meat. Now, today we'd throw that out or maybe put it in a jar under the sink. But in the 1700s, nothing was wasted. This slush was actually a highly valuable commodity.
Really?
Yes, the coast would scrape this fat into barrels, store it below deck. Just imagine the smell of barrels of old fat rocking in the hull. And when the ship finally got back to port, they would sell it to manufacturers.
Manufacturers? What are they making with rancid meat grease?
Candles, mostly. Tallow candles were huge back then.
Wow.
Or it was used for lubricants for machinery. But here's where the fun part comes in. The Navy didn't officially account for this grease in their budget. It was considered a waste product.
Ah, I see.
So the money the cook earned from selling it was considered off the books.
I see where this is going. Who got to keep the cash? Just the cook.
Technically, it was often used for the benefit of the whole crew. Since the Admiralty didn't track this money, the sailors used the slush fund to buy little luxuries they couldn't get through official channels.
Like what?
We're talking about musical instruments, better food, books, maybe some cushions for the hard benches.
That's actually kind of wholesome. A slush fund started as a way to buy a guitar with leftover burger grease.
It started that way, but you can see the trajectory. By the 19th century, slush fund began to refer to any pot of supplemental money for government workers or organizations. And because that money was off the books or unmonitored, it was a very short leap to using it for bribery and corruption.
That is a classic evolution. It goes from recycling fat for the boys to buying a senator just because the money wasn't tracked.
Exactly. The lack of oversight remained the consistent thread, but the intent shifted from buying banjos to buying influence.
Okay, well, sticking with the nautical theme, or maybe just the morbid theme, let's talk about kick the bucket.
The classic euphemism for death.
Now, I have a very specific cartoon image in my head for this. A guy standing on a pail with a rope around his neck, and he just kicks the pail away. It's dark, but it's kind of slapstick. Is that where it comes from?
It's a very common assumption, and it makes sense visually, but most etymologists reject the suicide by pail theory. The reality is much more visceral, and it actually has nothing to do with the bucket you carry water in.
Okay, if it's not a water bucket, what is it?
We have to look at the word bucket in 16th century Norfolk, England. It likely comes from the French word bouquet, that's B-U-Q-U-E-T, which referred to a beam or a yoke used to hang things.
A beam, like a structural beam in a barn.
Specifically in a slaughterhouse. When livestock pigs usually were being slaughtered, they would be suspended by their hind legs from this wooden beam, which was called a bucket.
Oh, no, I think I see where this is heading. This is going to be gross, isn't it?
It's grim, but it's history. In their death throes, as the animals struggled after being slaughtered, their legs would spasm and they would literally kick against the beam. They would kick the bucket.
Wow. Okay, that completely changes the phrase for me. It's not a cartoon image of a man in a pail. It's a direct observation from a slaughterhouse floor.
Correct. It's a piece of agricultural reality that we've sanitized into a quirky phrase. We use it so casually now.
Yeah.
I want to see Paris before I kick the bucket. But the origin is purely about the physical act of dying.
Speaking of buckets, this feels like the perfect transition to a phrase that I feel like has been around forever. The bucket list.
Oh, this is one of my favorite reveals in the whole research stack because it shocks almost everyone.
I assume this is ancient, right? It feels timeless. Like, I've got my bucket list. I'm going to see the pyramids before I die. It feels like something Mark Twain or Hemingway might have written about.
You would think so. It feels deeply embedded in our culture. But bucket list is incredibly modern. It was coined in 1999.
1999. I have T-shirts older than that phrase. You're telling me people in the 80s didn't have bucket lists?
Not by that name. They had life goals or dreams, but the specific phrase didn't exist. A screenwriter named Justin Zackham was writing a personal list of things he wanted to do before he died, or, using our previous phrase, before he kicked the bucket.
So he just riffed on the slaughterhouse phrase.
He did. He titled his document, Justin's List of Things to Do Before He Kicks the Bucket. And then, because that's a mouthful, he shortened it to Justin's Bucket List.
And that script became the movie.
Yes, the 2007 film The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. Before that movie marketing campaign, the phrase bucket list basically didn't exist in the cultural lexicon. If you search books from before 2006, the phrase is virtually non-existent.
That is genuinely shocking. It feels so ingrained in our culture. It just shows how powerful pop culture is. It can manufacture tradition almost overnight. We think we're using this ancient wisdom, but we're quoting a movie poster.
It really can. It shows that language is still being invented right now. We assume these things are ancient, but sometimes it's just a clever screenwriter from 20 years ago.
Speaking of movies, let's talk about the silver screen. We use this to talk about the glamour of old Hollywood. Stars of the silver screen. It sounds so poetic.
It does. It sounds like a metaphor for the shimmering, elusive quality of fame. Like the stars are up there on a pedestal made of precious metal.
But knowing this deep dive, it's probably just an engineering spec, isn't it?
It is purely technical. If you go back to the early days of cinema, the 1910s and 20s projection technology was pretty weak. The light bulbs weren't that bright.
So the movies were dark.
They were dim and blurry. If you projected onto a white sheet or a matte white wall, the image looked washed out because the surface absorbed too much light. They needed a surface that was highly reflective to bounce more light back at the audience's eyes.
So they actually used silver.
They literally coated the canvas screens with metallic silver paint, or sometimes embedded actual silver dust into the fabric. It acted almost like a mirror, increasing the contrast and brightness significantly.
So it wasn't an artistic choice to be fancy. It was just a patch for bad light bulbs.
Completely. And here's the cool part. As projectors got stronger, we stopped using silver screens because they were actually too reflective for normal movies. We switched to matte white vinyl, which diffuses light better for wide seating. But
it's always a but.
The technology didn't disappear. If you go to a 3D movie today, you are likely watching it on a literal silver screen again.
Why is that?
Because 3D glasses dim the image significantly. You're putting polarized sunglasses on in a dark theater. So they need that old-school high reflectivity to make the image watchable.
So the silver screen isn't just nostalgia, it's actually current tech for superheroes flying at your face.
Precisely. The phrase outlived the original tech, only for the tech to come back to save the day for 3D.
I love that. Okay, let's move from the cinema to the boardwalk. I have a phrase here that I use all the time when I almost get something right. Close, but no cigar.
This one transports us straight to the traveling fairs and midways of the early 20th century.
My question is, why a cigar? Why not close, but no stuffed bear? Or close, but no goldfish?
Because back then, cigars were the standard prize for adult games of skill. Think about the High Striker, that game where you swing the mallet to ring the bell or shooting galleries.
I guess that dates it pretty well. You don't see them handing out Cubans at the county fair anymore.
Definitely not. But picture the scene. You're a guy in the 1920s trying to impress a date. You play the shooting game, you just barely missed the bullseye. The carnival barker needs to keep the energy up, keep the crowd engaged, but he also needs to tell you that you lost.
So he shouts it out.
Close, but no cigar. It's dismissive but catchy. It tells the audience, you almost made it, but you aren't walking away with the prize tobacco.
It's got a great rhythm to it. It's almost musical.
It does. And by the late 1920s, it had escaped the carnival and just became a common way to say, nice try, but you failed.
It's interesting how we kept the phrase, even though the prize has completely vanished from that context. Now we say it to kids who have no idea what a cigar even smells like.
Right. While we're on the topic of winning and losing, let's talk about hands down. Like, she won that election hands down. It means she won easily, indisputably.
This brings us to another pastime, 19th century horse racing.
Okay, help me with the physics here. If I'm racing a horse, don't I need my hands up to hold the reins? How do I win with my hands down?
You absolutely need your hands. That's the key. In a close race, a jockey is in an athletic crouch, leaning forward, hands high, keeping tight tension on the reins to urge the horse on. It's a very tense physical position.
Right, they're fighting for every inch.
Exactly. But imagine a scenario where a horse is so dominant, so far ahead of the pack, that the jockey knows he's won before he even hits the finish line.
He can stop trying. He can relax. He loosens his grip on the reins and drops his hands to his sides or rests them on his thighs.
So crossing the finish line with your hands down is the ultimate flex.
It is the 19th century equivalent of a mic drop. It signifies that the victory was so secure, you didn't even have to guide the horse for the last 100 yards.
That makes perfect sense. It's not just winning, it's winning without effort.
And that nuance is still there today. If you win hands down, it implies you didn't even break a sweat.
Okay, let's pivot to food. Or, well, food where it shouldn't be. Egg on your face.
This is a great one because it has layers.
It usually means being embarrassed, right? Like you made a fool of yourself publicly.
Right. Now, the most obvious origin is simply throwing eggs at people.
The classic rotten tomato treatment.
Yes. Medieval crowds throwing eggs at bad actors or prisoners in the stocks. Even women in the 19th century using eggs to fend off unwanted advances. Getting hit with an egg is objectively humiliating. It's slimy, it smells, it ruins your clothes.
But the research notes here suggest there's a more specific economic origin.
There is, and I find this one fascinating because it speaks to class and economics. We have to remember that before modern refrigeration and industrial farming, eggs were not always cheap or available year-round, especially in winter.
Really? I just think of eggs as the most basic staple. They're always in the fridge.
Today, yes. But in the early 20th century, having eggs in winter was a luxury. It was a status symbol. So if you were walking around town with egg residue on your face,
it meant you were eating well.
It meant you were being unwisely lavish.
Yeah.
You were showing off your wealth, but in a messy, careless way. It suggested you were a slob with money.
So it wasn't just you look dirty, it was you look like a careless rich person.
Exactly.
Right.
There's a great story from a Kansas newspaper in 1911 that illustrates this perfectly. A young man was actually scolded by his boss for being extravagant because he had egg on his face.
Busted by the breakfast stain.
And the young man's defense. He claimed it wasn't egg. He said it was just mustard from a cheap ham sandwich. He was trying to prove he wasn't rich.
That is amazing. I promise I'm poor. It's just mustard. So egg on your face was about social embarrassment regarding money, not just performing badly.
Originally, yes. It was a sign of careless indulgence.
Now, staying with eggs for a second, what about egging someone on? Like, I egged my friend on to jump into the pool. Is that throwing eggs at them until they jump?
Common misconception, but no.
Yeah.
This phrase actually has zero to do with chickens or omelets.
Really? It sounds exactly the same.
It's a linguistic drift.
Yeah.
It comes from the Old Norse word eggja, which means edge, E-D-G-E,
Well, like the edge of a sword.
or just the edge of a cliff. It's about edging someone forward, pushing them toward an action. It's been around since the 1200s, long before the phrase egg on your face appeared.
So I'm essentially edging them on.
You are pushing them to the edge. Over time, edge softened into egg in colloquial speech, and because we have the word egg in our vocabulary, we just assume they were related.
That makes a lot more sense linguistically, though I have to admit it's less fun than picturing someone throwing breakfast at their friend to motivate them.
It is more logical, if less messy.
Let's do one more food-related one, but a nicer one. Apple of my eye.
Ah, a classic term of endearment. You say it to your child or your partner.
This one has to be poetry, right? You're sweet like an apple.
It's actually bad anatomy.
Bad anatomy, what do you mean?
In Old English, the word apple didn't just mean the specific red fruit we eat. It was a generic term for any fruit or any spherical object.
Okay, so a ball could be an apple.
Right. Back then, anatomy experts, and I use the term experts loosely here, thought that the pupil of the human eye was a solid spherical object, a little hard ball sitting inside the fluid.
They thought the pupil was literally a little apple.
An apple, yes, a solid sphere. And since your vision is arguably one of your most precious senses, the apple of your eye, that pupil was the most protected, vital part of your body. If you lose that apple, you go blind.
So when I say you are the apple of my eye, I'm not calling you a fruit. I'm saying you are as important to me as my own ability to see.
Exactly. You are as precious as my vision. It goes way back. King Alfred the Great used it in the 9th century, and it's in the King James Bible. It's a very deep, very old way of saying, I can't live without you.
That is surprisingly deep. I like that. It gives the phrase so much more weight. Speaking of deep and maybe a little heavy, let's look at some literary and biblical origins. Albatross around your neck.
This is the ultimate symbol of a burden you can't shake. A psychological weight.
I know this involves a bird, but I've never understood why it's around the neck. That seems specific. Is it fashion?
Not quite. This comes directly from Sэмüela Teylora Kольriджa's famous poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
I remember reading that in school, but I think I blocked out the bird part.
Well, it's central to the plot. In the poem, an albatross follows the ship through the ice and fog. The sailors see it as a good omen. They feed it, they welcome it. But then, for no good reason, one of the sailors, the mariner, shoots it with a crossbow.
Just senseless violence.
Totally senseless. And immediately the luck turns. The wind dies, the ship is stranded in the calm, the crew starts dying of thirst. The other sailors blame the shooter. To punish him, and to mark him with his sin, they force him to wear the dead carcass of the albatross around his neck.
Literally.
Literally. The poem says, instead of the cross, the albatross about my neck was hung. It's a physical manifestation of his guilt.
That is horrifying. It's not just a burden like a heavy backpack. It's a rotting bird symbolizing that you killed your friends.
It is a very heavy phrase. We use it lightly now. You hear people say, oh, this mortgage is an albatross. But the origin is about profound, cursing guilt.
I will never use that phrase lightly again. Okay, another ominous one, the writing on the wall.
The writing on the wall usually means we can see disaster coming. The signs are there, and they're obvious.
Where does this come from?
This is biblical, the book of Daniel. We're in Babylon with a ruler named Belshazzar. He decides to throw a massive, disrespectful feast. He's drinking wine out of holy chalices that his father had stolen from the temple in Jerusalem.
So he's asking for trouble. He's mocking the divine.
He finds it. During the feast, a disembodied human hand appears out of thin air,
Like floating.
floating near the lampstand. And it starts writing a message on the plaster of the palace wall.
That is straight out of a horror movie.
It terrified everyone. The king's knees were literally knocking together.
Yeah.
The message was in a code or language the guests couldn't read. Man, mene, tekel, upharsin. They bring in the prophet Daniel to translate.
And what did it say?
It essentially meant, you have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Your kingdom will be divided.
So, game over.
Literally. Belshazzar was murdered that very night. So the writing on the wall isn't just a hint or a clue. It's a divine death sentence.
We really do use these heavy, doom-laden phrases for such mundane things now. The writing is on the wall for that TV show. It's going to get canceled.
It dilutes the drama a bit, doesn't it? We've taken divine judgment and applied it to sitcoms.
Just a bit. Let's end the segment on a quieter note. The land of Nod.
Going to sleep.
It sounds so whimsical, like a nursery rhyme, drifting off to the land of Nod. I picture clouds and
The
pillows.
sound is whimsical, but the origin is, again, biblical and tragic.
Oh no! Even the nap time phrase is tragic.
I'm afraid so. In Genesis, after Cain kills his brother Abel, the first murder in history, he is exiled by God. He is sent to dwell in the land of Nod, located east of Eden.
So Nod is a real place in the Bible.
Yes. The Hebrew word Nod literally means wandering. So it was the land of wandering for an exiled murderer who could never find peace.
That is bleak. So how did we get from exiled murderer wandering forever to tucking the kids into bed?
You can thank Jonathan Swift, the satirist who wrote Gulliver's Travels. In the 1700s, he made a pun.
A pun.
A simple pun. He connected Nod, the biblical land, with the physical act of nodding off to sleep. He wrote a character saying they were going to the land of Nod, meaning they were going to sleep.
So the nursery rhyme phrase we use is just a dad joke that survived 300 years?
Basically, yes. It stripped all the biblical horror out of it and just left the wordplay.
That is fantastic. So what does this all mean? We've got dead birds, grease funds, exiled murderers, and silver paint.
I think it goes back to your museum idea. Our language is a time capsule. We are preserving these little fragments of human experience, sailing habits, carnival games, ancient laws, every time we speak.
It really changes how you hear conversation. You realize you aren't just exchanging information, you're trading history.
Exactly. And the literal contexts fade away. We don't deal with slush grease or expensive winter eggs anymore. But the feeling of the phrase, the embarrassment, the corruption, the victory, that remains useful. The emotion survives even when the technology or the culture dies.
Here's a question for you to mull over and for you listening at home. We talked about the silver screen becoming obsolete, but the name's sticking. What are we saying today that will confuse people in 100 years?
That is the big question. Think about cloud computing. In a century, if the technology changes entirely, will people think we literally stored data in the sky?
Or hanging up the phone. We tap glass buttons now. We don't hang anything on a wall. But we still say, don't hang up on me.
Or rolling down the window in a car. There are no cranks anymore. We are creating the baffling idioms of the future right now.
I love that. Somewhere in the year 2100, someone is going to explain to a listener why they sound like a broken record, even though they've never seen a vinyl disc.
We are leaving them plenty of puzzles to solve.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the weird world of words. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did.
It was a pleasure to walk through the museum with you.
Until next time, keep your hands down, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.